And that finally brings us to Marcus Aurelius as a philosopher. Now, understand that Marcus Aurelius wasn't a philosopher in the traditional sense. He was more a philosopher by mistake. Marcus did, however, study philosophy seriously and belonged to a school of philosophy known as the Stoics. I'll go into the tenets of their philosophy later in the segment. However, for now, I'm really eager to delve into the only written work from Marcus Aurelius which survives to us now. And this is an extremely fascinating piece in my mind. Collectively, we call his written works the Meditations. However, there is a new and far superior translation that is out called The Emperor's Handbook, and I would highly recommend this book to anybody. The one absolutely critical thing you need to understand about this work is that it was never meant for public consumption. What we essentially have is Marcus Aurelius's diary. Because if you read it not knowing that, you're probably going to think, wow, this guy is a sanctimonious jerk, constantly telling me about my duty and everything I'm doing wrong. Who is he to tell me any of this? But when you realize he's telling this to himself and no one else, your entire outlook changes. When you realize that this was never intended to be read by anyone else besides the author, it makes you realize what an extraordinary human being Marcus Aurelius was. He would tell himself every day how he was failing to meet his own expectations of duty and how he can constantly be bettering himself. And I think it's worth reminding ourselves here that Marcus Aurelius at this point is the most powerful person in the world. He is the wealthiest person in the world and, like I said before, has command of the world's greatest military force. He has achieved more than any of us could ever hope to achieve in our lifetimes. Yet here he is still telling himself how he can do better. And to me, that's truly remarkable. To not get absorbed in your own ego, to not grow crazy with power, to not succumb to every physical temptation in the world, which is certainly at your grasp as the emperor at any time you want. There's no historical figure quite like him, and let me show you that as we crack open the Emperor's Handbook. He writes, "First thing every morning, tell yourself, today I am going to meet a busybody, an ingrate, a bully, a liar, a schemer, and a bore. Ignorance of good and evil has made them the way they are. But I know that the good is by nature beautiful and the bad ugly. And I know that these wrongdoers are by nature my brothers, not by blood or bleeding, but by similarly being endowed with reason and sharing in the divine. None of them can harm me, for none can force me to do wrong against my will, and I cannot be angry with a brother or resent him, for we were born into this world to work together, like the feet, hands, eyelids, and upper and lower rows of teeth." Sorry, not the phrasing I would have used. Anyway, back to the book. "To work against one another is contrary to nature, and what could be more like working against someone than resenting him or abandoning him?" There are a lot of reasons I think this passage hits home. He talks about, yes, of course you're going to meet bad people every day, but the only reason they are bad is because they are ignorant of what is good and just. And this is a theme Socrates plays on as well, which is that human beings naturally want to be good. And the only reason we're not good is because we're ignorant of what's good. And this is something that Socrates and I believe both Marcus argue, which is that being good is something humans don't really want to fake. We want to be genuine in our pursuit of what's good and right. So in order to turn bad people into good ones, we simply need to educate them on what the good really is. and they will try and strive for it automatically. And I can already hear a lot of you shaking your heads and thinking to yourselves, man, what a load. But think about yourself. Don't you want to do what is good? Not just for the sake of doing what is good, but to genuinely strive for it. And if that, for whatever reason, it was proven to you that what you're doing wasn't good, then you would change it. You would try and bring yourself in accordance with the principles of justice. And as we talked about in the last engagement episode, it takes a lot of work to find the good path, to become educated and free yourself from the shackles of ignorance. It truly is a lifelong pursuit. And just about all of us, in fact, maybe all of us, never truly get there. There are two more things I want to touch on this passage. One, Marcus says that these people, these bad people you're going to meet on a daily basis, can't force you to do anything wrong out of your own free will. Therefore, they cannot harm you. What I really think he's trying to say here is that don't try and stoop to their level. That if you meet a liar and he lies to you, you shouldn't in turn lie back to him. Because what will this accomplish? All that this will accomplish is shrouding your own personal journey towards what is good and just. That while it might be tempting to return a wrong deed with another wrong deed, it simply doesn't benefit anyone. And this is a consistent theme we will see throughout the meditations, which is this idea that you should turn the other cheek when wrongdoing is committed against you. And I think this is an extremely difficult thing for people to swallow. But the logic, to me at least, is very clear, that all you will achieve in answering a wrong deed with a wrong deed is degradation of yourself. Now, last point about this passage, and one thing that I believe really illustrates what a great leader Marcus Aurelius was, is embracing these wrongdoers as your brothers, as your family, and still loving them even though they aren't perfect. And this love for all your subjects is one of the things that I believe creates truly great leaders. And this is one of the things that really bothered me about our previous Prime Minister, Stephen Harper. It seemed like he was only interested in treating with you if you were a fervent supporter of him and his party. And that's not the way any leader should ever behave, especially the leader of a first world industrialized nation. Moving significantly forward here, I want to read a passage that really reflects the overall goal or the overall theme of this podcast. Marcus writes, "Treat with the utmost respect your power of forming opinions, for this power alone guards you against making assumptions that are contrary to nature and judgments that overthrow the rule of reason. It enables you to learn from experience and to live in harmony with others. The power to create and formulate your own opinions should never be underestimated. We see people deride opinions, that everybody has an opinion, so it's completely meaningless. Yet your opinions are a core part of who you are as a human being, and I think we can all agree it's in our best interests to do our utmost to ensure that our opinions don't result in undue harm to ourselves or our fellow human beings. And part of what we try and do here on Ne Plus Ultra is give you the tools to help you create, explain, and justify your own opinions in a reasonably logical manner, which hopefully we're accomplishing. Continuing on, we can see a return to that theme of turning the other cheek. This is a very famous quote, and the translation here in the Emperor's Handbook is different from the one that is often seen, but Marcus writes, "Stop trying to make something of it, and you will rid yourself of this notion, I've been wrong. Overcome your hurt feelings or injured pride in this way, and you will be able to get rid of the wrong itself." The translation of this paragraph that I see the most goes like this: reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself will disappear. And I mean, think about it, right? if you keep dragging up this injury that someone else has inflicted against you, every time you drag it up, you are essentially recreating the injury every single time, ultimately just resulting in yourself getting angry, hurt, and depressed all over again. And in another famous meditation quote, which is in the same vein, Marcus writes, "The best revenge is to refrain from imitating those who caused the injury." Another core theme of the meditations is this idea that everything you need to be happy is right in front of your face. All these other extraneous thoughts are just complicating things. They're muddying the waters, when all that you really need to live a happy and joyous life is to be confident with your own thoughts and appreciate the simple pleasures and the people who love you. To illustrate this, let me read my favorite passage about this theme. Marcus writes, "Now picture the times of Vespasian," Vespasian being a Roman emperor previous to Marcus Aurelius. "This is what you'll see: men marrying, raising children, getting sick, going to war, partying, engaging in business, farming, flattering, bragging, suspecting, scheming, hoping for others to die, complaining about hard times, making love, or wanting to, making money, or wanting to, coveting high office, and seeking to be crowned king. But where is all this teeming life now? Leap ahead to the times of Trajan, and what will you find? The same, of course, and it too dead and gone. For that matter, examine the history or people of any time. See how hard they strove, and how soon they vanished back into the elements from which they were born. But most of all, consider those you have personally known, who, ignoring the good that lay at their feet, ran after some vain thing, and who never found the happiness that was within their reach all the time. A man's interest in an object should be no greater than its intrinsic worth. Remember this, and you will not get distracted by trivialities, or discouraged if you never get to some of life's details." So here he's saying, everybody gets wrapped up in these seemingly useless details and aspects of life that really don't mean anything or have any value. And I think this passage is still extraordinarily relevant to our time, maybe even more relevant than in Marcus Aurelius' time, because the amount of trivialities which can eat up our daily lives are more than they've ever been. So with that in mind, don't ignore the good that is at your feet all the time. The last theme of the meditations I want to touch on before we conclude this segment is this theme of focusing on maximizing your present value, that you shouldn't get worried about the past or the future, because everything that's important is happening right now in the present, right in front of you. In that vein, Marcus writes, "Do not let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which arm yourself against the present." And this is a quote I try and keep reminding myself of, as I have a tendency to get extremely anxious about the future. And Marcus is saying, you know what? You got this, man. You have all the tools you need to face the future already. So chill out and focus on the task at hand.